Hello everyone, welcome to Travel Massive Live and today's webinar Behind the 5-Star Rating, How to Deliver a Great Customer Experience. Today we have Markéta, Bláhová and Ioan Gheordanescu joining us from Prague. And my name is Maria Stoyanova, I'm joining you from Sofia, Bulgaria, and I'm going to be the host of this webinar today. Before we start with the actual presentation and I give the word to Ioan and Markéta, let me just tell you that you can use the chat box. If you're watching us live, use the chat box to stay in touch with us, introduce yourself, tell us where are you joining us from. Also feel free to share the link to your Travel Massive profile so people can connect with you. And of course, very important, when you have and if you have any questions for Markéta and Ioan, put them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. Okay, guys, see you.
All right, so thank you everyone for joining us. It's quite challenging time for everyone in the travel industry, so I'm even more glad that so many of you are still working on thinking how to make the experience for the customers even better. And I know it's quite a hard time, but I think that it's now time to actually think even more about how we can make it better. So I'm always trying to see a little bit positivity even in the difficult times. So I'm very glad that you're joining me and that I will have the possibility to share with you some of the learnings we gathered during the 4 years of existence of Daytrip. So I'm Markéta, I'm one of the founders of Daytrip. I'm now in the role of COO, and Ioan with me, he's the great manager of our customer support team. So he will be telling you more about the team and about all of our operations of the customer support teams. So let me start sharing the presentation with you, and I'll hope I have the right one. If you give me a moment, so I put there the first slide and share. And so I hope you guys all see my presentation now. So just maybe briefly would like to introduce Daytrip, the service. So we at Daytrip are fixing travelers' experiences by turning their transfers into an enjoyable trip. We connect them with local drivers who drive them door to door and visit sightseeing places along the way to their final destinations. So that's of course what we normally do for now. Let's see how the situation will evolve, but this is what we are doing, and we had a fantastic start to the season. And we are pretty much hoping that the end of the season will be good as well. So, of course, the experience starts much earlier than just before the customers hit the road, sitting in the car with the driver and transferring them from one city to another. Because of course the experience starts already while the customers plan their traveling and plan their journeys with us. So let's have a look. Another slide. This is I don't want to brag, but we are pretty happy, and we're very grateful for the feedback we have collected during those 4 years from our customers. And so within the 4 years, we were actually able to collect mostly 3,000 or almost 3,000 positive reviews, and while almost avoiding the negative ones, which I would say it's quite important as well, because unfortunately people tend to look into the negative reviews more than into the positive ones. And actually it's said that around 90% people read online reviews, and also 80% of customers trust online reviews, and actually they trust them as much as a friend. So I would pretty much like maybe you can let me know in the chat if you look in online reviews before purchasing a product or a service, and I'm pretty much sure that most of you do. But not to brag about ourselves, even though we're pretty happy with the ratings, let's look how we were able to achieve that, and maybe we'll be able to give you some advices on like how to do that. So this is something we would call like the main 3 pillars, the circle which illustrate. Can you hear me? Sorry, yeah. So the circle which illustrates the 3 main pillars you should focus on in order to provide a great customer experiences. So it starts with great team, then with setting up the expectations for the customers, then collecting the feedback, and why it's circular, because we think that it's always have to be rethinking. So it's not process from the beginning to the end, but it's always running in the circles. Let's start with the team. I'll now give the word to Ioan, who will tell you more about how to get a great team of customer support representatives.
Thank you, Markéta. So building a great support team, the first step in creating a great customer experience is having the right people on your front line. Our customer support team interacts with clients constantly, therefore they can make the biggest impression on your clients. We start by hiring people with customer-focused attitudes, and we are a bit picky when it comes to this, as we don't really want to sacrifice quality and soft skills. Once we hire people with the right attitude, we train them on our company values and nurture their abilities to grow their skills. Some companies try to hire a specific number of people to get the work done and assume the people should just be able to get the job done. That's not always true, and it's important to consider that along with finding people with the right attitude, you need to identify competencies your support team needs to actually deliver the customer experience you envision. So for example, some people are great on the phone, some people are really good at dealing with angry clients by email, and some people are very flexible when it comes to scheduling and always being ready to work on a night shift. These are just some examples. Every team has their own required competencies, and it's important to identify these when planning your recruitment. In terms of the cultural fit and diversity, we believe it's important to hire workers with different backgrounds, as they can help each other understand the differences in cultures. Take, for example, the hand gesture in this slide. It can be interpreted differently across the world. So in the US, it means okay. Russia, it means zero. Japan, it means money. And in South America, it's an insult. So we're just using this hand gesture to convey the idea that support teams need to be ready to handle the communication styles of different people. Another example of this would be that North Americans typically need some fluffy words to make them feel good about their communication, and Germans just want a direct and efficient answer. In order to find this cultural fit and diversity, we mainly hire expats to work on our support team. While the language skills are essential for our clients, the fact that expats have traveled around the world gives them the ability to associate with our clients' needs. We consider this an advantage as it helps customers feel that they are speaking to a support team that has been in their shoes before. So we recommend trying to hire expats. You'll be surprised how many are in your city and looking for work that relates to them. Now, the next step is to trust your team and give them freedom. So you've hired people with the right attitude, fill the competencies your support team needs, and you've taught them the values of your company. Now you have to trust them. It's a bit hard to do in the beginning. I think we've all gone through that. But once you've trained them, it's time to let them take ownership of their work. You don't go through the recruiting process to hire these great people only to tie their hands and supervise their every action. Giving your support team the freedom to make decisions on their own will give them a sense of ownership, and they will care more about their job. And this in turn makes them happy. When your support team is happy, they will translate that emotion to your customers as well. So give them the independence to give refunds when they think it's necessary. Don't make them feel pressured that you count every dollar or euro wherever you might be. Avoid the corporate strategy where a 20-euro refund needs to be approved by 6 different people. If you think about it, that only makes the customer wait longer, and they'll become more disgruntled as they're waiting. Also, make sure your support team is confident in asking you questions and help them find the right answers or make decisions themselves rather than always giving them the answer. Teaching this to your entire support team will save you an exponential amount of time by letting them speak to each other about how to handle something. Again, this will only benefit your customers and your business overall. Also, you have to care for your team deeply. So remember that your support team is your front line. Some companies treat developers like royalty, and yet they never even speak to your customer. Your customer will generally remember two things: the customer service they received and the product or service itself. That means you need to treat your support team like the most important department in the company and make sure they know they're a value part of the operation, not just some entry-level job that's treated as expendable. And equality is a big part of this. At Daytrip, we treat everyone with the same level of respect. Avoid looking down on, excuse me, avoid looking down on others because of their job title. And we make sure everyone gets cake on their birthday, like you see in the photos. Just to relate to the current situation with COVID-19, it's been essential that we keep our front line in good spirits so that they keep up the great communication with our customers. While many customers might be canceling their trips, our speedy communication with them and flexibility is making them remember us. So when things start to recover, they will remember Daytrip for our great customer service, and naturally they'll relate that to a high probability that Daytrip service will make them feel good about their choice as well. And Markéta, over to you for the principles to exceed expectations.
Thank you. Like Lonnie said, I'm just like now continuing the presentation with principles to exceed expectations. It's basically, So this is my favorite slide. Everyone loves avocado. Everyone would love to be an avocado, but sometimes you cannot be that, even though if you're trying. So what we are trying to say with that, like I'm sure each one of you want to please their customer the best they can. So sometimes maybe you really want to go that extra mile for trying to please them as much as you can, but please always remember that you cannot do it under like all the circumstances always. And it's important always to focus on your core product or service and be transparent if you think you cannot deliver a product or service that client is asking for. So it's always better to promise something you can deliver rather than try to promise something you will not be able to deliver. So I have an example from the first year of our operations when we were really happy and desperate for every customer. So we were really trying to please everyone. And we had this one customer who had very specific wish for tour in Austria, which was mainly about the famous movie. Now help me, Lonnie, with the name of the movie. It was Sound of Music. Sound of Music tour. So this lady wanted to visit, this customer wanted to visit all the places from Sound of Music. So we really wanted to help her and really give her the opportunity to visit all the sites she would love to see. And so we actually scheduled her and we provided her with the tour. But what happened? The customer was so unhappy that it meant our first negative review online, which is still there, and you can go and read it later. But I would prefer if you read the positive ones. But what happened is that we were trying to deliver a service we were not focusing on, because what we are focusing is transferring people from one city to another with some friendly drivers who can comment on cultural things, on cultural differences, on just like the normal life, but who are not specifically trained to be guides for Sound of Music tours. So what happened in the end is that the customer was unhappy. We were unhappy because we, of course, had to refund her money and received negative review. And the driver was unhappy and demotivated because he was really trying his best, but still the service was not delivered. Another thing which I would say is try to please your customer, especially now during the COVID situation. It's a bit different, but under normal circumstances, we have pretty much flexible policy. Up to 24 hours, you can do any changes to your bookings, and you can even cancel your trip. But sometimes, of course, as we are trying to please the customers, we are trying to be flexible even with that. So when we see that, I don't know, customer gets sick and they need to reschedule even under the 24 hours, we are always trying to do that. But you should try, but you should be very articulated in saying, this is something outside of our policy. I will see what I will do, what I can do, but unfortunately I can't promise you. Because few times we really like had good intentions of like, okay, we will try to reschedule it, or we will reschedule it even outside of the cancellation policy. But then, because it was such a short notice, it actually turned against us, because the customer then was expecting us to do it, but we were not able to do it on such a short notice. And again, it only turned against us. So what I would say, just really be very, very transparent in what you can and what you cannot do. Usually the customers are very, very understanding. And if you tell them what you can do or you cannot, they will be even more happy. For example, a few times it happened to us that someone asked us for a service which we were not able to provide, but we were able to give them a tip for a different provider. And again, the customers then came back and thanked us, like saying, oh, thank you for telling us you cannot do that, but the next provider was good. And next time when I will need a service like yours, I'll definitely get back to you. So you can actually help the customers even in a different way, not even that you necessarily have to sell them your product. But again, as Lovni said, you can leave the good impression, and next time they will need the service you provide, they will come back to you. My next slide is under-promise a little and over-deliver. Again, what it means, like when we started, we were selling the service, saying that we are providing a guide who can drive customers from one city to another. So when we use the word guide, people were expecting someone who will tell them very detailed information on everything, and they were actually a bit unhappy because they were expecting something else. Even though all our drivers are trained and need to be more than just the drivers who are driving just the wheel and don't talk or do anything else. So what we did, we just easily tweaked the word guide to driver, and all of a sudden it was completely opposite, because the people were expecting just a driver who just sits behind the wheel and don't talk, and they actually had something like a guide. And so they were delivered a bit more than they expected, and it turned out to be great for us, because it was a positive surprise. Or even small gestures, like when someone is in a foreign country, they don't speak the local language, when the driver is able to help them, for example, calling their Airbnb host to check if they are really counting with them. Little things like having a bottle of water in the car. Those are the small things, like chocolate in a hotel. Everyone loves having chocolate in a hotel on their bed. Those little things create the great picture together, and it's important and not to forget about those little details. And I would say this is even the most important thing. I think that there are no French people watching us, so it's probably for the good. Responsiveness is the key. We had it many times, and we learned this, I would say, sometimes maybe even the hard way. You always have to be responsive as quickly as possible, respond to the customer, even though when you might not have the answer yet. Especially when there's a problem, say negative feedback or just like a small hiccup, and you probably need some time to respond to the customer, because you need to talk to the driver first, and so on and so on. But at least send a message to the customer like, hey, sorry for the wait, we know about the issue, we are get back to you will get back to you in certain amount of time, but let the customer know that you know about them, that you are working on resolving the issue. Because what's the most like the worst thing you can do is to have it somewhere in the mailbox, and even maybe be working on resolving that, but not letting the customer know. So the customer can be even more and more mad. The issue can escalate, even though it could be polished at the beginning. The issue can escalate. The customer is sending you more and more messages, more and more emails, and maybe can go and to some online platform and leave some bad reviews which you would not like. So always be responsive. At Daytrip, we have a rule to respond within 24 hours to any incoming message. And should it happen that we would not be able to resolve something in 24 hours, we still at least send a message to the customer. We unfortunately are not able now to give you a specific answer, but we are working on that, and we'll get back to you. So this, like, I can see now the question. So how can you be responsive if you don't have the answer to the customer's questions? Yeah, exactly. Like, just at least let them know that you're working on that, because it could only get worse if you don't let them know that you know about it. And I think that now I will give it back to Ioan. And we touched on that a little bit, but now it's going to be the topic of feedback.
Yeah, definitely. So that responsive is being responsive to your clients is definitely helpful. And that brings us to feedback is rocket fuel. So your customers' feedback is absolutely crucial to your company's growth and your future customers' happiness. Customers, and this is true to myself as well, typically they're making decisions through online reviews. Like Markéta mentioned before, me personally, before I find a restaurant to eat at, I usually check TripAdvisor or Google before I start asking my friends what's a good place to eat. So this is true to more companies than ever before. Therefore, it's important that you have online reviews about your product or service, and that you're responsive to them, that you're very responsive to them. Now, online reviews aren't the only thing. There's also feedback you get from customers. So we found that asking clients open questions about their experience provides us much greater detail about how we can improve our business or how to fuel our marketing. Instead of giving them a survey, asking them for star ratings on things you think are important, you can gain a lot of key information from your customers by letting them speak their mind when giving you feedback. Essentially, you're trying to avoid filtering their thoughts. So for example, if you have 1,000 5-star reviews and your customers keep saying they were so happy with the cleanliness of the vehicle, well, then you know that this is an important selling point for your customers. If you didn't ask that in your survey, you might never realize how important it was. Now, the next slide I think is for Markéta, so she can go over some tips there about TripAdvisor.
Yeah, so exactly as Ioan said, like try to collect the feedback from the open questions and try to always analyze it all over again. So for example, at the beginning, we thought that, and you can actually fuel and feed your marketing feeds with those keywords people are mentioning often. At the beginning, as we were selling the product on Google Ads, we were using keywords which we thought are relevant. And for example, sightseeing stops. We thought that sightseeing stops is the most important thing people will care about, and then they would be clicking the ads as crazy. And they were clicking the ads, but it was not like that huge number. And after we collected a few. After we collected a few hundreds or dozens of reviews, we started to notice some repeating keywords as highly recommend this service. That people were really mentioning highly recommend this service. So what we did is that we took this keyword, we put it back to our ads, to our online marketing, and like all of a sudden we saw that people really do click on those ads even more. So go and analyze what previous customers are saying, try to filter the words, and use it to attract the new customers, because what's important for the past customers will be most likely important also for the new customers as well. So, and then back to Loni.
Yeah, everybody's favorite topic. So despite all your efforts to build a good support team, some things might still go bad and you might still end up with some negative review on your TripAdvisor profile. We have to deal with it, and remember not to put the stress on your support team, as most of the time it's out of their control to begin with. The most important thing to do when your team first learns of a negative experience is to get in touch with the clients as soon as possible, as most of the time you can resolve the issue before it even becomes public. We've definitely saved a few one-star reviews from getting to TripAdvisor by being proactive to these things, and it ties back into responding to people within 24 hours, even if you don't really have an answer for them. When it comes to public negative reviews, clearly we don't want to have too many of them, but it does serve as a way to show your future customers how you deal with situations. In transfer services, there's usually a level of anxiety for customers when they arrange their plans. You know, they're thinking, will my driver show up? What if we get a flat tire? Those kind of things. So if you end up with a negative review because of a flat tire, the most important thing to do is show your clients how you solved it. In our case, if a vehicle breaks down, we do our absolute best to find a replacement driver as soon as possible to come and take the clients the rest of the way. Showing the solution in your reply to a negative review, especially public ones, is essential for the readers that are trying to decide if you're the company they want to book with in the future. Now, I think most operations teams and business owners get the feeling that most clients will only be happy if they get some money back. That's not always the case. We have experienced great customer satisfaction when they see or truly believe that there will be some action from us regarding their negative feedback. So for example, making sure that every driver will carry a spare tire with them in case of a flat tire, so that a delay to their trip would be minimal. Last but not least, avoid blaming the client publicly. Yes, sometimes they might write a negative review over something that really has nothing to do with your standard service. Perhaps they just misinterpreted your service. However, that does not mean you should shame them for it, especially publicly. This will only make your potential clients think that you do not treat your customers well in the case of an honest mistake or misunderstanding. So it's crucial to be apologetic and understanding in these situations, as you never know exactly what prompted the negative feedback from the client. Perhaps they had a bad day, maybe your support team did not explain something clearly, or their driver just didn't meet the expectations. So no matter the case, your support team must remain professional and kind. I really want to highlight, they have to be kind to your customers if you want to continue building credibility and confidence in your clients. And over to you, Markéta.
And over to me. So now it's for me just to summarize it a little bit. I would say choose people who can relate to your customers, set the expectations correctly, and focus on your product. Don't try to deliver or don't try to be something you're not, and make your business feedback driven. And I would maybe add fourth point now because of those situations we have, and it's something we did not mention that much, but definitely the fourth point would be flexible. Currently all Daytrip office is working from home for more than a week now due to the coronavirus. It was like at first we were thinking, oh, it's not gonna work because the customer support teams, they have to answer the phones, they have to be in the office to communicate the things together. But there's always, where there's a will, there's a way. And so you have to be ready to make some adjustments and be flexible under all the circumstances. So that would be from us. This is us. If you would like to get in touch with us, and thank you so much for joining us today. And I think that now that would be time to answer some of the questions.
Thank you, Markéta. Thank you, Ioan. That was very, very interesting. If anyone has any questions, put them in the chat box. We already have a few, but let me just first start with something so we can get a better idea of Daytrip. Can you tell us how big is your team and how many drivers do you guys have? And maybe if you have some kind of a number of, you know, in the strongest month, how many clients do you have? How many people are using the service?
So we transferred around 200,000 people during those 4 years. And the team is about 50 people at the moment, but we have all the positions in-house. So it's including the support teams, it's including IT team, business development team, everything. And what was the other question? Was there something?
Drivers?
Yeah, the drivers. We have the network of drivers over 2,000 at the moment, because we are now around the world. So it's around 2,000 drivers.
Awesome. I think we already answered the first question, but let me just read it for the recording. You said you have 2,700 reviews that are across for the 4 years now, and how many products you have? I think you mentioned.
We basically like have just one service, one product, but different destinations around the world.
Okay, what % of customers do you have to assist via your support staff?
Like to be honest, we don't have the exact number, and as well we are refining the product, so there's less and less need to be in touch with the customer, because now customers can do some of the things themselves, saying, for example, when they need to change the departure date or pick up address and so on. But I would say like half of the customers contact the team, and the other half just book it directly online without any assistance.
Awesome. You also answered that in the chat box, but I would like to say that for the recording as well. What channels do you let people contact you for support? Mostly it's email. I would say like really like most customers communicate with us email, and it's for us also the preferable form of communication. There's certain number of online chats, some very small number of or communication through social media, mainly Facebook. And we also have a phone line, but we prefer to have it just for the urgent cases, not just that we would be providing advices on like how planning the trip over the phone, but it's mostly for the last minute changes and things like that. Okay, next, what do you do if a customer threatens to write a bad review? Does this happen often? And are there any strategies? Lovni, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. It happens. It doesn't happen so often. The drivers that we hire, they do a really good job. And we make sure that they're actually drivers that can provide the service that we sell clients. So it doesn't happen often, but generally when they're threatening to write a bad review, I don't think all of them are gonna go through with it. But the important thing is to listen to what they're actually complaining about, because sometimes they might make it seem like they're gonna try and destroy you on TripAdvisor, Google, whatever, and that only 100% refund is gonna make them be quiet or something like that. But if you listen and pick up or read their email, whatever it is, and you pick up on what exactly is troubling them, if you show them that there's gonna be some kind of action about it, maybe they're honestly trying to warn other travelers about their experience or something. If you can show them some kind of action, you won't get to the negative review on TripAdvisor. It's really about listening to them, responding to them quickly, and that's probably time is of the essence. I know we've had a couple of experiences where maybe we didn't get to someone fast enough, and that's actually what led them to leave a bad review. Nothing, even a refund or anything else wouldn't have done anything for them. It's just the fact that we didn't get back to them fast enough. Okay, question from Bavna. Do you contract directly with drivers, or you use tour operators or supplier who employ them?
We contract the drivers directly. So they're contractors, independent providers of the service, but we do meet each one of them personally. So we really know each one of the person who drives our customers. So we have a network of, or not network, we have people on the team and regional managers who are hiring those drivers, and always make sure that the people who they hire are the right fit for the platform.
Great. A few more questions. TripAdvisor, love or hate?
Oh my gosh, this one is tough. This one is tough. I would say TripAdvisor, a great tool, something which people go for inspiration and for checking the reviews. For me, for us as for supplier of the service, I would say that sometimes it's not that easy to work with that. And now it's changing constantly. So I would say that the relationship is very ambivalent. It's sometimes it's love because you're so happy that so many people really go there and leave the review, and you are proud of receiving the certificate of excellence from TripAdvisor because it's like a big brand with a great reputation. But sometimes working with the interface, and so it's like you would like to just kick the computer and never open TripAdvisor again. So I would say very ambivalent relationship. I don't know if Ioan feels the same.
Yeah, it's mutual.
Another question. Your business model has many opportunities for cross-selling. Do you have any partners that you work with?
Like until now, we were more focusing on just like selling the service as it is now, because we were still at the beginnings. And we did not want to jeopardize it with something we were not really sure about. But now, as we are growing, and hope like now it's a bit harder, but hopefully we'll jump back to the growth. There are definitely some opportunities, and we have our biz dev team who definitely will be happy if you would get in touch with.
Awesome. Another one. Are there any brands that you can think of right now who you admire for their customer support? Maybe yours?
I am happy with my team, I'm not gonna lie, so.
I would just say that in general, even brands who can like admit that they did a mistake and they are willing to fix it and find a solution to fix it. I unfortunately cannot think of a positive case. Like they are definitely, not to say that I don't think that we are the only ones who are doing it well. Like there are definitely brands. Apple, yeah, there's a great example, I would say, like Apple, but to be honest, I don't have like experience when coming to like resolving issues or so. But I can say, for example, from my perspective, even Google, even like such a huge brand, when I had like a problem, you can get in touch with their support team. They're trying to help you resolve the issue. They're responsive, and that's everything which I like. And so some brands are hard to be reached. So that's I think always difficult. So.
I do have one last question. Can you give us an idea of who is your customer? Like, where do they come from? And also, who leaves the best comments?
So it's changing, like historically, because we started providing the service in Europe. Most of our customers were from the US, say couples from the US around their 50s, 60s, traveling to Europe from city to city, wanting to explore as much as possible. As we are growing, we're in more destinations, so it's changing. So for example, in Asia, we are seeing many Europeans, younger audience, but I would say that still like the one main customer is the Americans, people from the US.
Okay, I think we have one last question, and we can wrap this webinar up with that one. When travel restarts after everything, goes back to normal, let's say, where is the first destination you're going for a day trip?
Wow. Myself, I would really like, I'm thinking for many years already to do really like a big tour around Europe, because even though I'm based here in Prague, in heart of Europe, I visited many cities, but did not do like a big round trip around. So I think that I would do that.
And me, if it had to be a literal day trip from Prague, I think I'd maybe Neuschwanstein Castle near Füssen, Germany. I might have butchered that pretty bad, but there's a really nice castle near Füssen, Germany. It's not too far from Prague, so it's been something we've wanted to see for a while.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the amazing presentation, for all the tips and advice that you were so eager to share with us. I hope everyone got something out of this webinar. For everyone who was watching us live, we heard from Markéta Bláhová and Ioan Gheordanescu from Daytrip. Join Travel Massive Live for future webinars. We have one tomorrow when we're going to discuss COVID-19 and the tourism industry. We'll have members from around the world, and we're going to share what are they doing in this situation. Thank you again, and Travel Massive will support you, and we wish you a lot of success in the coming years.
Thank you. Stay healthy, everyone, and good luck.
Thanks for having us, everybody.